This is CBN Newswatch.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN Newswatch. I'm George Thomas. Americans along the upper East Coast are facing a tropical storm warning today. Elsa continues its trek, moving into the northeast after hitting the southeast and mid-Atlantic in the last few days. The storm is blamed for one death in Florida. My colleague Mark Martin has the details.
Elsa plows up the East Coast, bringing with it heavy rain, powerful winds, and the possibility of tornadoes.
Utter chaos over here right now.
Forecasters predicted Elsa's heaviest rain to hit New York City in time for the morning commute, just hours after a different storm produced flash flooding. Commuters faced what looked like underground lakes as subway stations flooded. The waters disabled some of the city's highways and streets. Police rescued more than a dozen people from this expressway. Before hitting the Northeast, Elsa gained strength over the Carolinas. In Virginia, this driver got his Ford Mustang stuck in feet of water. Elsa had produced at least one tornado in every state it hit as of late Thursday. This video shows the powerful twister that struck Jacksonville, Florida. The 110-mile-an-hour winds wreaked havoc in the area. The damaging winds toppled trees. One person died in Jacksonville after a tree crushed his car.
Poor gentleman was just driving, probably heading home, and a tree came down and hit his car.
And in Georgia, another tornado formed because of Elsa. The EF2 twister carved through a Navy base, destroying trailers and sending debris flying. 9 people went to the hospital.
I come out and there's guys pushing his kids out the top door over here.
Large trees fell on homes and businesses. Elsa led to nearly 50 million people being under flash flood watches as it moved up the East Coast. Back in the Northeast, the tropical storm could produce 5 inches of rain as it travels to Boston by midday, carrying with it winds up to 50 miles per hour. Mark Martin, CBN News.
Thank you, Mark. Rescue workers in Florida are now focused on finding remains instead of survivors in the rubble of a condo collapse. They vowed to keep up their search for victims until they cleared all the debris on site. The death toll rose to 64, with another 76 people unaccounted for. On Thursday, the teams paused to mark the 2-week anniversary of the disaster.
We have now officially transitioned from search and rescue from search and recovery. The work continues with all speed and urgency. All task forces are being deployed from across the country and the world. We are working around the clock to recover victims and to bring closure to the families as fast as we possibly can.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has pledged financial assistance to the families of the victims, as well as to residents of the building who survived but lost all their possessions. U.S. officials say support for the Afghan people will continue as President Joe Biden says the military mission in that country will end on August 31st. The United States seeks to end the nearly 20-year war. Biden spoke Thursday on the issue. He said it's time to end the nation's longest war. More than 2,400 Americans have been killed and more than 20,000 have been injured while overseas.
So let me ask those who want us to stay. How many thousands more Americans' daughters and sons are you willing to risk? How long would you have them stay? Already we have members of our military whose parents fought in Afghanistan 20 years ago. Would you send their children and their grandchildren as well? Would you send your own son or daughter? We have a point person.
The president says continuing to fight a war indefinitely is not in the security interests of the United States. Fans will be banned from Tokyo area stadiums and arenas when the Olympics start in 2 weeks. That means the Olympics will be a largely TV-only event. The Japanese government put the capital under COVID-19 state of emergency because of rising new infections and the highly contagious Delta variant. Well, this is a serious blow for Japanese taxpayers and local organizers of the game. Hundreds of millions of dollars in ticket revenue will be lost. Pharmaceutical company Pfizer says a 3rd dose of its COVID-19 vaccine could dramatically boost immunity. Research from multiple countries shows the Pfizer shot and other COVID-19 vaccines offer strong protection against the highly contagious variant. This latest version of the virus is spreading rapidly around the world and now accounts for most new U.S. infections. The company asked the FDA for emergency authorization of this third dose. Former President Donald Trump is filing a class action lawsuits against three of the country's largest tech companies, Facebook, Twitter, and Google. All have banned, as you know, the former president from using their social media platforms. Critics have long argued that the major media has a liberal bias and now argue that social media does too. David Brody has a look at those criticisms and how conservatives are responding.
We may no longer see Donald Trump in front of cameras or feel the impact of his late-night tweets, but his infamous label fake news lives on as much as ever before.
This is a news media that will look you in the face and say that they are a news media. They're nothing of the sort any longer. They are unquestionably the megaphones for the far left in America today.
When Trump departed, he left a gift of inflated exposure and better ratings to a number of conservative media outlets, including Newsmax and One America News. Meanwhile, Fox News only got lumps of coal from the outgoing president.
Fox has become fake news, too. I don't know what happened.
While Fox remains the major conservative voice, things have changed since the events of January 6th, especially when it comes to staying away from so-called flamethrowers like U.S. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene.
What's been your experience there? I look for you there. I don't see you there often, if at all. I don't know. I don't track it totally. But what's your experience there with Fox?
Well, if you notice, David, I'm one of the most conservative members of Congress, and I'm never invited to be on Fox News. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows that Fox News changed drastically after the election. Republicans all over the country constantly talk about how Fox has changed, and they don't see it the same as they used to.
The Georgia Congresswoman seems to be part of a growing distrust of the media. Recent polls shows that of those who voted for President Trump, 92% of them see the media today as just a part of the Democratic Party. Another poll shows since January 6th, that feeling among Republicans has increased even more, up some 7%. Washington Post media reporter Paul Farhi says the Trump faithful have totally tuned out the mainstream media over issues such as coverage of election integrity issues during the 2020 election. And even his answer is somewhat telling.
In some ways, David, it's hard to argue with the faithful and the belief of the faithful. The facts don't seem to really matter, and the evidence doesn't seem to matter.
So where do Trump conservatives go? Some are looking to alternative outlets, which have refused to back away from charges about a rigged election. At first, social media served as a way to get around the mainstream influence, although with Twitter and Facebook leading the censorship charge, it's becoming trickier, and options to fully speak out have become limited.
Obviously, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, there are a lot of social media outlets that have proven to suppress the voices of conservatives. And so I think that we have all felt like, gosh, wouldn't it be nice if there was a platform available that would allow us to say what we want? Oh, my gosh, the First Amendment. Imagine that, our freedom of speech not being stifled.
This next phase will be fought primarily online as a battle against big tech censorship.
There's a lot of fear out there of if we can't talk to each other and we can't express our opinions, how are we ever going to mount a great challenge for the midterms or to take back the White House? It's a very helpless feeling.
Tomi Lahren and other conservatives say the key will be multitasking, staying engaged on Twitter and other platforms, despite big tech's roving eye, while also looking for new viable conservative alternatives in this new media landscape.
A lot of folks I know are boycotting Twitter. They don't want to be on it, and it's understandable. But for me, I'm not going to give up an inch of a place that I still have a voice. So I'm going to keep talking for as long as I can until they deplatform me. The same thing goes with Facebook and Instagram. So unfortunately, it's kind of the best option we have right now is to just keep it up for as long as we can until we no longer have a voice on those platforms. And then we're going to have to get creative.
It's the reality millions of conservatives and voters live in today. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Thanks, David. Some shoppers are saying manufacturers are putting less in their packages, but keeping prices the same. Economy experts call it shrinkflation. They say rather than increasing the price of a product, the size or quantity is decreased. In some cases, consumers are paying the same price.
Rather than explicitly increasing the price of a product, producers will instead change the size, usually making it slightly smaller. The conventional wisdom is that an explicit price increase might be noticed by consumers and they might react negatively to it, but a small decrease in size may not be as observable.
By the way, the latest data from the Consumer Price Index indicates that prices on everyday goods have jumped 5% over the last 12 months. Coming up, Lebanon on the brink of collapse. What can be done to save its government? And how does a potential fall impact the Middle East? Our Chris Mitchell will be joining us live.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crabb Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Samantha and Zachary enjoy spending quality time with their children. Whatever the activity, they find life is better together. When the COVID-19 crisis hit the United States, their main concern was keeping their children safe. They both let go of their side jobs with ride-sharing companies.
So I could stay home and make sure that they were safe. Bills started rolling in, and we just started choosing food over paying bills.
When it looked like there was nowhere to turn, they met someone from Jonathan Cares, which partners with Operation Blessing.
It felt like a weight had been lifted. You've changed our lives, made a difference.
Thank you. People around the world need your help. When you partner with CBN, you rescue children and adults from despair, and you give them a promising future. Please watch for this mailing and remember to send in your pledge. When we all come together to help, miracles happen.
Welcome back, folks. Lebanon, once known as the Switzerland of the Middle East, is now on the verge of economic and political collapse. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, the fall of Lebanon could have disastrous consequences for Israel and the greater Middle East. Take a look.
Recently, these Lebanese demonstrators blocked the main road to Beirut's airport to protest the abysmal conditions inside their country.
All the people are hungry and no one has anything to eat. No one can do anything. There's no electricity at home, children need milk, and no one can afford to buy it. That's why we're here.
Lebanon's worst crisis in decades includes no functioning government, a national currency freefall, and growing national debt. The world witnessed the catalyst for this disaster last August when this explosion rocked Beirut, sending shockwaves throughout the country. Now, people must wait hours in line for fuel, and that's when it's available. Blackouts occur daily to save electricity, and many hospitals don't have enough medicine. Lebanon's caretaker prime minister is pleading for help from Middle East nations, the UN, and the international community.
To help save the Lebanese from death and prevent the demise of Lebanon. Lebanon is a few days away from social explosion. The Lebanese are facing this dark fate alone.
Lebanese expert Orna Mizrahi blames the situation on the combination of political turmoil, economic corruption, Hezbollah, and the COVID pandemic. She says the main problem, however, is a dysfunctional political class.
We have a very rich elite of all sects that it's combined. There is a combination of money and political control in Lebanon, and they are doing nothing to help their own people. They are deteriorating day by day till the situation that we have now.
Hezbollah, led by Hassan Nasrallah, is the strongest power in the country, given its dominant military. Nasrallah wants Lebanon to shun the West and turn solely to Iran for help. Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz recently offered to send humanitarian aid through the UN, although it's unlikely Lebanon will accept the offer. Israel and the region now face a worst-case scenario.
That Lebanon will not fall in the hands of Iran. The international community will do nothing. It will worsen.
Joining me now from Jerusalem Live is Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell. Chris, great to have you on the broadcast. So I'm curious here, how else has the international community responded to this crisis in Lebanon?
Well, George, right now I think the international community is looking for a new government and the political reform before sending any more financial aid. It's the idea of sending good money after bad. They want to make sure that Lebanon is in a condition to actually accept more aid. The International Monetary Fund is in negotiations right now with Lebanon. France, who has a deep relationship and long-term relationship with Lebanon, is one of the leading countries, but it wants to stop the rampant corruption and the mismanagement going on right now. You know, Lebanon has one of the highest national debts in the whole world, and right now it's really a financial pauper, and it's really sad, George, to know this, because the Lebanese historically have been amazing traders, business people, and right now they're on the brink of collapse.
Chris, I think I assumed the answer to this question. What are the consequences for Israel if Iran ends up taking over Lebanon?
Well, that would be awful for Israel. First of all, you have the danger about 150,000 rockets that Hezbollah has been provided, much by Iran, aimed at Israel. You also have the possibility of refugees coming across the border. But, you know, George, some argue this scenario might actually work out to loosen Hezbollah's grip on Lebanon. And this is why. If Iran, with its own failing economy, can't support Hezbollah, then the Lebanese people may not support Hezbollah like they have. And then maybe this support for Hezbollah inside will fade. That's the hope of anybody right now. It's really just a desperate situation for the Lebanese people, really, who are living on the edge.
Chris, you're the host of Jerusalem Dateline. Buddy, tell us what's happening on the show tonight.
Well, we have a story not only about Lebanon, but we have a story right now on Israeli experts warning about the Iranian nuclear deal. One of those experts is a nominee for the Nobel Prize in Physics. We also have a story, an interview with one of Israel's leading social media influencers, Hanania Naftali. A story about Passages, a group bringing U.S. college students to Israel. And finally, George, we have a story about a discovery of an ancient building. It's right next to the Temple Mount. It comes from the time of Jesus, and that wraps up our Jerusalem Dateline. I think you're going to enjoy it this week, George.
All right, terrific. Folks, you can see more news from the Middle East with Chris and his awesome team on this station or on the CBN News channel tonight at 8:30 Eastern. Still ahead, sugar intake on the rise in America. How much should you really consume? We'll break down the answers right after this. Stay with us.
Too often we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel. Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com to get your copy today.
Folks, welcome back to CBN News Watch. Get this, American adults consume about 60 pounds of sugar each year. No wonder more than 40% are obese. And children, they take in even more. Lori Johnson brings us this alarming look at how much danger sugar can do to your health.
More than 42% of adults are now obese, making it the first time the national rate has passed the 40% mark. One reason? We consume 3 times the recommended amount of sugar. Most American adults consume about 1/3 of a cup of sugar each day. Think of it. That adds up to about 60 pounds a year. This much. But guess what? Kids consume even more than grown-ups, 65 pounds a year. A lot of that comes from beverages. Kids consume 30 gallons of liquid sugar a year, enough to fill a bathtub. Fruit juices, sport and energy drinks, even tea and coffee are often loaded with sugar. This one Starbucks item contains more than 14 teaspoons of sugar, almost 2 days' worth. Candy bars make people happy without them realizing they're eating a whole day's sugar allotment.
They do feel that uplifting feeling for a few minutes, but the problem is these long-term effects.
Doctors say consuming too much sugar can lead to cancer, heart disease, and brain disorders.
Sugar has been shown in several research studies to worsen depression, to worsen anxiety, and associated with things like brain atrophy and dementia.
Even foods that seem healthy are often loaded with sugar, like this protein bar with 8 teaspoons. Canned peaches in syrup, 18 teaspoons. Baked beans, 22 teaspoons. In her book, Breaking Up with Sugar, Molly Carmel describes her decision to lose weight after tipping the scale at 325 pounds.
Sugar is a tricky little abuser because it really is everywhere. I gave up ketchup. I gave up teriyaki sauce. I gave up a lot of salad dressings.
This tiny jar of pasta sauce contains 5 teaspoons of sugar, and this small bottle of barbecue sauce has 54. Health experts say one of the best ways to reduce sugar intake is to avoid processed foods and cook at home from scratch. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
It's the new Superbook Bible app.
It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
Wednesday at 3 on the CBN News Channel. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet. A special audio recording from Pat Robertson.
If God be for us, who can be against us?
Pat Robertson reads verses of salvation, peace, and victory.
In all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to become a CBN partner and get your copy of God is For Us. Affirm your faith, reduce stress and anxiety while dwelling on the promises of God.
Neither height, nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com and get your copy of God is For Us today. Available now.
NASA's SpaceX Dragon cargo freighter undocked from the International Space Station Thursday. It's loaded with approximately 5,000 pounds of scientific experiments and other cargo. Next stop for the Dragon, a splashdown in the Atlantic Ocean. Folks, that's it for this edition of CBN Newswatch. Remember, you can find out more of our awesome news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online at cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. Or you can reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you'll join us again next time. From all of us here, goodbye. Have a great Friday, a great weekend ahead. Goodbye and God bless you.